Alright, hello everybody. Friendly Red here, back once again with something a little different. Recently, Nintendo put out a very strange and spooky teaser for what a lot of people, myself included, thought would be a brand new, M-rated horror title featuring this lovely paper bag wearing gentleman. Fast forward a bit from that initial teaser, and it instead ended up being for a new Famicom Detective Club game, known as Emio, the Smiling Man. Now, I could go on and on about that announcement alone, and we will get to talking about it in due time, but really, this announcement of a new Famicom Detective Club game got me thinking about Nintendo's output for the Switch as a whole for this year, and I wanted to take this opportunity to discuss. So today, we're going to be taking a look back at 2024 for the Nintendo Switch so far, focusing on the first-party developed and/or published titles for the console. I'll be giving some brief thoughts on the titles I've played thus far in the year, as well as what I think about what's upcoming for the later half of the year, and at the end, go over what I think this year means for 2025 and the launch of the Nintendo Switch successor. Well then, let's get to it, shall we? Starting off in January, our first big Nintendo release of the year was none other than Another Code Recollection, though perhaps calling this big is being a bit generous. Being a mystery, adventure, visual novel kind of experience, I'm not too sure how wide of an appeal this game has to the greater gaming community, but I suppose some context and info would probably be helpful here for understanding that claim. Another Code, Recollection, is a remade collection of two rather obscure games from Nintendo's past, that being Another Code 2 Memories and Another Code Journey into Lost Memories, with 2 Memories being on the Nintendo DS and Journey into Lost Memories being on the Wii. Right off the bat, this collection on Switch is notable due to the inclusion of the second game, Journey into Lost Memories, as for some reason Nintendo of America decided against releasing it here back in 2009, despite launching in Europe, meaning the translation work was already done. This collection also is the first time we had the first game released under its original title, as it was retitled to Trace Memory when it launched here in North America in 2005. Definitely some weird decisions going on with this series back during its original run. As for the games themselves, as mentioned before, they are narrative-driven, adventure, mystery point-and-click games, with some light puzzle solving and exploration making up the bulk of the gameplay, with the rest being dedicated to dialogue and story segments. These types of games are for sure pretty niche, and aren't exactly the most fun things to play, but that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy my time with Another Code, far from it. Obviously, with an emphasis on story, these kinds of games usually tell pretty interesting and compelling ones, and I found both of these titles to fit within that mold. And on a more personal note, I really value and appreciate games that offer up something different from what I usually am used to when playing games. So trying out something like Another Code, Famicom Detective Club, or other games and genres or gameplay types I usually don't experience is refreshing, I suppose, and I feel gives me a greater understanding and appreciation of the medium of video games as a whole. With all that said, I think Another Code Recollection was a really cool release, and I'm glad more people than ever can try out these games that were, before now, pretty much lost to time. I also think this being the first-party release of the year really set the stage for everything to follow. As like the title of this video suggests, this year for Nintendo releases is for sure pretty weird and experimental. For now though, let's move on to the next title. Moving into February, we have 2 titles to look at, or 1.5, I suppose. Yes, February saw the release of one new game from Nintendo, and a pretty substantial DLC pack for a pre-existing game by Nintendo. The releases in question were none other than the remake of Mario vs. Donkey Kong, and the side-order DLC for Splatoon 3. So, Mario vs. Donkey Kong. It was a game. I don't know, man. I just really don't have any strong opinions on this one. It's a remake of the GBA game of the same name, and it's a fine enough little puzzle platformer. I just don't really understand why this was remade in particular, you know? It's just not all too exciting and interesting, especially compared to the other Nintendo remakes of 2024. And I also think it was way too expensive for what's on offer here. Honestly, I'm kind of struggling on more to say about this, because even though I played this when it released, I've forgotten pretty much everything about it. All I can say is that it's an okay game, but one I would only recommend if you can find it for cheap, because I really don't think it's worth the $50 asking price. On the completely opposite tentacle, we have Splatoon 3's side-order DLC, which was way more exciting, fun, and interesting to discuss and look into. Keep in mind though, I'm biased. But yeah, I love Splatoon 3, and the side-order DLC was looking to offer something really unique and different compared to really any other mode we've had in the series yet, being a roguelite, run-based single-player adventure. Upon its release, I played it a lot, and have continued to go back to it every now and then when I'm craving something a bit different from Splatoon 3. As alongside Salmon Run, it's a great way to shake up the usual Turf War matches I usually default to when I play the game. It's a great addition to the already rich variety of different ways to play Splatoon 3, and I really hope that something similar to this DLC will pop up in whatever follows Splatoon 3, as it for sure could use some fine-tuning and adjustments to become even better than what we have here. Still, for a first-time attempt at a roguelite, I think the devs did a good job. And as per usual with Splatoon, the music, visuals, and overall presentation was top-notch, and also quite distinct from any other single-player adventure in the series yet. But I think that's all I want to say regarding February's releases, so let's jump ahead to the end of March for our next one. Right near the end of March, we had the first truly new, wholly original standalone game release for Nintendo Switch in 2024, which was none other than Princess Peach Showtime. Sure, I suppose you could make the argument that the second game included in another code, Recollection, was wholly new to a lot of people, particularly here in North America, but it's still a remake of an older title. Whereas Princess Peach here is quite unique, being not only the first truly new game for the Switch in 2024, but also Princess Peach's first ever solo outing. We're not counting this one, okay? So yeah, Princess Peach Showtime was, in fact, a good time. Though, to me, it was nothing more than that. It's awesome to see Peach have her own game, but somewhat similar to the remake of Mario vs. Donkey Kong, I don't know, I just don't really have any super strong feelings or opinions about this one. At its core, Princess Peach Showtime is a fairly simplistic 2.5D platformer, with the gimmick being Peach's ability to transform into different roles to fit the stage play she's partaking in, as the game's levels are all supposed to be different stage plays at the theater the game takes place in. If I had to compare it to anything, I'd say the game kind of reminded me of a Kirby game, what with the main playable character being able to transform into different forms, giving them different skills and abilities that they can use while progressing through the level, and both of them being pink. Unlike Kirby games, however, the transformations here are a bit more involved and specific, which lends to more variety in the gameplay. For example, the first transformation, the Sword Fighter, it does feel a lot like a Kirby copy ability, lending Peach some basic offensive actions to use as she goes through the level. But then you look at something like the Patissier, which basically turns the game into a baking minigame, or the Detective, which makes the game more about puzzles and dialogue, and less so about platforming. So yeah, you get a lot of variety throughout the adventure, and it's also a great looking game too, featuring some very nicely detailed and colorful environments, as well as some really good looking cinematics too. I'm glad our favorite princess from the Mushroom Kingdom finally got a good game to call her own, and I hope that we get to see this concept revisited and refined over time, as similar to how we saw Luigi's own solo outings get better and better as his series continued on. Though, let's just hope we don't have to wait a decade plus like he did for a sequel. Anyways, let's move on. April didn't house any first-party Nintendo games, so we'll have to move on to May of 2024, which had not one, two games that were, at the very least, published by Nintendo, though not developed by them in any capacity. Firstly, like another code earlier in the year, we saw the return of a long-dormant franchise from Nintendo with the release of Endless Ocean Luminous. Now, I don't have a lot to say about this one, as I've yet to actually play it for myself. I'm interested in doing so at some point in the near future. As similar to another code, I think this game offers up something very different and unique in comparison to a lot of other games I play, and who knows, maybe I'll dedicate an entire video to it once I get around to trying it out. For now though, it's probably best to move on to the other release of May, which is no doubt the biggest release that Nintendo has had thus far, a remake of a GameCube game from 2004. But this isn't any GameCube game from 2004, okay? This is the GameCube game from 2004. Yes, after 20 years, we finally got a re-release of everyone's favorite paper-based Mario RPG, that being none other than Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. Now, I've already talked about this game numerous times here on the channel, so I'm not going to spend long on it here. All I can really affirm here is that, yeah, The Thousand-Year Door is still the best Mario RPG, and I think each and every single person who A, owns a Nintendo Switch, and B, likes RPGs, needs to give this one a go. I absolutely adored my time revisiting the game with this remake, and even recently finally went and tackled the last big remaining thing left in the game I had to do, which was completing the Pit of 100 Trials, which, if you're interested in seeing that, you can find it over on my other YouTube channel that has my Twitch VODs. Hashtag shameless plug. That's all for May, so let's move on to our last few discussion points. The summer's pretty slow for new game releases, and in June we really only saw one new first-party title from Nintendo, and even then calling it new is being pretty generous. I'm of course alluding to Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, which as the name would suggest, is an HD remaster of the Nintendo 3DS game from 2013. Now, over a decade on from the original, what do we get here in the HD version? Well, it's on the Nintendo Switch, in HD, and it's $60? Yeah, so I haven't actually picked this one up yet, and to be honest, I probably won't be anytime soon, as I just don't really feel like spending that much on Luigi's Mansion 2 of all things. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure it's a fine enough game, but I wouldn't really know, as I never played the original on 3DS. And I just feel like the middle of summer is kind of a weird time to release, Luigi's Mansion. And I also feel that if you really want to play a Luigi's Mansion game on Switch, you really can't go wrong with the third game, which I have played and think is quite fantastic. Plus, you could probably find that game for cheaper now than what 2HD is going for. So yeah, I feel like that's the better option here. Here's hoping 2HD gets cheaper fast, or at least closer to Halloween, as that would be when I would really want to play it. For now though, we shall move on. And at last, we find ourselves in the present, July of 2024. Nintendo just released their newest game, Nintendo World Championships NES Edition, and while I haven't given it a go yet, I did in fact buy it, because, I mean, okay, look at this giant dumb big wall of video games and cool boxes. Did you really think I wasn't going to buy another big dumb video game box to add to my wall of dumb video game boxes? Yeah, anyways, going back to the start of this video, they of course recently gave us info on Famicom Detective Club Emio the Smiling Man, which will be releasing in just a few weeks on August 29th. Looking ahead past Emio, we also have some other big games to look forward to for the rest of the year, with The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom in September, Super Mario Party Jamboree in October, and Mario & Luigi Brothership in November. But what was the point of all this? What was my goal when yapping on about first-party Nintendo Switch games in 2024? Well, for one, I think it's just fun to look back and see what's come out so far, especially in comparison to 2023. That year felt like this insane explosion of nothing but banger after banger after banger, with Nintendo firing on all cylinders to deliver what will probably end up being the best year in the Nintendo Switch's history. In comparison, 2024 has been, I feel, much more relaxed, strange, and, dare I say, weird and experimental. Outside of any of the games in the Mario series, and of course the new Zelda game, everything has been unique, to say the least. And even then, the new Zelda game coming out is looking pretty different from any 2D Zelda we've had before, so... But what I find a bit more interesting is that pretty much most of the first-party titles for the Switch this year haven't even been made by internal Nintendo development teams. Of the 12 titles I've mentioned here, only 3 of them have had development done by Nintendo's own internal teams. That being the Mario vs. Donkey Kong remake, Splatoon 3's DLC Side Order, and Nintendo World Championship NES Edition, which even then is a collab between Nintendo EPD and Indie Zero. The other titles were all handled by Nintendo's development partners, or have yet to be released, meaning it's hard to know for sure who's behind the projects. We know ArcSys, the team behind Guilty Gear Strive, and basically every other modern 2D anime fighting game, did the development work for Another Code Recollection. Good Feel, the team behind Kirby's Epic Yarn, Yoshi's Woolly World, and Yoshi's Crafted World did the development work for Princess Peach Showtime. Arika, the devs for the first 2 Endless Ocean games, handled development for Luminous on Nintendo Switch, and Intelligent Systems, the longtime developers of the Paper Mario and Fire Emblem series, handled the development of the remake of The Thousand Year Door. As for Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, well, the original work for the game was done by Next Level Games, who also made 3 for the Nintendo Switch. However, it seems a developer known as Tantalus Media was responsible for bringing the game to Nintendo Switch with the HD version, which was a smart choice, as they also helped with some previous Nintendo HD conversions in the form of Twilight Princess HD for Wii U and Skyward Sword HD for Switch. As for the yet unreleased games of 2024, we can make some educated guesses and presumptions as to who's making them. While it's been confirmed that the series producer, Yoshio Sakamoto, is designing and helming the new Famicom Detective Club game, we don't know for sure exactly who's making it. However, a studio known as Mages Incorporated was behind the 2021 Nintendo Switch remakes of the first 2 Famicom Detective Club games, so I think it's safe to assume that they are probably back for this new title, potentially with support from one of Nintendo's own internal teams as well. For Echoes of Wisdom, I think it's a safe guess that Grezzo, the team behind the Link's Awakening remake on Nintendo Switch, as well as numerous other Zelda remakes, is back again for this new game. It's hard to know for sure if they are the sole developers on the project, or if Nintendo is also providing more than just supervision for the title. We'll most likely have to wait until the game is released to know for sure, but given how similar it looks to the remake of Link's Awakening, I'd be surprised if Grezzo isn't in on this project in some capacity. For Super Mario Party Jamboree, that's almost certainly being done by Indie Cube, who have been the main devs of the Mario Party titles since Mario Party 9 on the Wii. And finally, we have Mario & Luigi Brothership, which is a tricky one to know, as the original developers of the Mario & Luigi series as a whole, Alpha Dream, closed down in 2019. There have been some rumors that Ilka, the developers behind the Nintendo Switch remakes of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl, are working on this new title, and Nintendo themselves have confirmed that some of the original team members from Alpha Dream are on the project, though they haven't confirmed who exactly is making the game yet. This one's a complete mystery for now, and one that won't be solved until the game is released, most likely. Now, why did I want to highlight the fact that so many Nintendo Switch first-party games of this year aren't made by Nintendo? Well, I personally just find it kinda neat, but more importantly, I think it really does show that we are at the end of the Switch era, and that Nintendo's own teams are very busy with their own projects and games that are to come with the Switch successor, but most likely sometime next year in 2025. And honestly, it's really exciting. With so much of Nintendo's own efforts being put into the new hardware and software that'll launch alongside it, or at least within the first year, I think 2025 is shaping up to be a really strong start to whatever this next era of Nintendo is going to be. Heck, the one game that we do know already is coming next year is Metroid Prime 4, and I think that kind of speaks for itself. I cannot wait to see what's in store for us as we get closer to 2025, and while I could easily discuss what I think is coming, or what I personally want for the new system, well, I think I've yapped on long enough for now. Longer than I was expecting when I sat down to work on this script, that's for sure. So yeah, with all that being said, I think that'll do it for this video. If you made it to the end, thank you for watching. Your continued viewership and support is greatly appreciated, and as always, I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next time.